All right. I think everything is up and running. So what we'll do is switch over to the drawing stream layout and go ahead and get started. Okay. I think everything is loaded up and good to go. So let's see, we are going to be jumping back into our character study from the previous session, but before we do that, I want to take some time to set up a BGM track for us to have in the background. And I see Penguin's here. Penguin says, "Hi Raku, I'm currently getting ready for work and came to say hi." Hey, what's up, man? I know I'm jumping on a little bit earlier than usual, so glad you could stop by and say what's up before you head off to work. Hopefully your day goes well and is low stress. Alright, I'm going to leave the creating BGM thing on screen here for now. I've got my loop off to the side here. What I'm going to have to do is set up the track for the BGM, and then I'm going to have to rearrange the stuff on my desk so I can get my tablet in front of me and actually start drawing. So let's see. Let's see if I can slide this a little bit closer. What I really need for my desk setup here is I need to have one of those things that mounts the keyboard underneath the desk and kind of slides in and out. That way I can put my keyboard under it when I'm not using it. But for now I have to just play Tetris with all the stuff on my desk because I don't have enough room. Penguin says, "Today's Veterans Day, so today's going to be hectic, at least to get holiday pay." Yeah, I'm sure there'll be more crowds out there in retail because of the holiday. Hopefully it's not too bad, but yeah, holiday pay is good. Make sure to stay safe out there. Bring your Karen repellent. Okay, let's take a look at how we're going to structure the track here. I'm having trouble seeing what I'm doing. Base BPM's at 157. I'm going to try and go for something a little more hip-hop oriented here. And I'm going to lay down a simple rhythm, and I'm going to see if it automatically syncs the BPM based on what I do. Let's see if we can get something a little bit slower. And I'll also be testing levels and everything. Penguin says, "I will keep you updated if needed." All right, man, we'll probably be at this for at least a couple hours today. So hopefully it's not too hectic at your job. All right, let me do a test beat here. All right, Penguin's heading out. It says, "See you later for now." All right, man. I'll catch you later. Thanks again for stopping by and saying what's up. All right, what if I want to do something with a BGM snare, which we don't really do frequently on these loops. So let's see if we did something like, we'll go faster or slower. Let's try that. Okay, now the master tempo is at 104, so yeah, it does look like it syncs to the first input. That's good to know. Let's do this. I'm going to do kind of an iterative save strategy this time so I don't irreparably screw up my beats if I'm doing my overdubs. I'm going to experiment with layering additional snares on top of the bass beat we have here. We have 2 snares, they're both BGMs. And I kind of want to experiment with the idea of layering on an additional case snare, like a sharp rim shot type snare on top of the BGM just to fill it out. We've done this a bit on some of the previous ones, but I kind of want to get in the habit of learning overdub and learning how to be precise with it. So I'm going to try and add just like a like that, and I'm going to stick reverb on, let's see, 50%. That's a little too high. And I'm going to take the fader down on the BGM track a little bit. We'll leave it about there. If I turn it up more than 50%, the snares kind of peak. All right, let's see if we can start building up the rhythm track with a couple kind of supplemental instruments. Okay, it's subtle, but it's there. There's a little bit of a reverby underlying additional sound kind of underneath, boosting up the BGM snare. Now let's think about what we want to do for a bass line. I kind of like the idea of combining a guitar to bass effect, which I think is only on input track A, we usually use. Yeah. So I wonder if we can combine the guitar to bass with one of the other distortion filter effects on one of the other tracks, so we're not just getting a straight electric string bass line. I want something that's a little bit more distorted. So let's see. Maybe we can try and check out which presets we have for the distortion and then just add the guitar to bass, since I know where that lies roughly. Ah, Edward's here. Heyo, Edward. How you doing? Welcome to the drawing stream. We're just getting BGM set up. Could try and see if we turn ring modulator on, but try and tweak the settings down a little bit so it's not quite as mechanical sounding, and see if we can get kind of like a grainy, distorted sound on the bass. Let's see. This is with it on high, down, lower. About here. I'll turn it off for a sec. So the question is, if we combine that with the guitar to bass, if it takes the bass line and then kind of makes it more of a distorted bass. I don't think we've tried that before, so let's see if we can get it to work. it looks like what the distortion on ring modulator does is it kind of gives it more of an echoey sounding bass. I was hoping for something a little bit more kind of grainy and distorted. We could try lo-fi on top of guitar to bass and see. My mic is gonna be down a little bit because I took off the dynamics. That's why it's gonna sound a little lower. But let's try lo-fi. This effect on the bass is very similar to what we did on the Always Behind You track. Let me see if I can tweak the settings a little bit and try and get the distortion a little bit cleaner. But I kind of want to use this for this combination of effects for the bass line. I just want to get the sound right. So I'm going to experiment with some tones while I mess around with the settings. Okay, that took a little bit of tweaking, but I think I have the bass where I want it. So let's see. I was experimenting around with just notes so I could hear how the sound changes when I tweak settings. But I think I want to go from a high to a low sustained bass and have it move through the track. Then we'll figure out another layer and then we'll move on here. So let's see. Go 50% on guitar to bass, and I think that's about 30 or 25% on lo-fi. So let's see if we can get it. All right, let me see. Got dynamics back on. Let me know if the BGM levels right now are too high. It should be about normal. I'm just trying to make sure I can hear what's going on. I was thinking about adding a hi-hat line, or maybe like another, like a closed hat line, or even like a different snare line. I wonder if like a triplet trap snare would work. We've done it on a couple of the other beats so far, but something like, let's see. Oh, that's not reverb. Maybe about here. I think that competes a little bit too much with the hi-hats on the main beat. We could leave this the way it is and just see what the track effect options change for the rhythm, and then just keep it simple. It doesn't have to be too complex. This is just a background sound. This is what beats scatter. And pattern 2 is interesting. I don't think we've really used this one too much. Let's see what pattern 3 sounds like. Oh. That's not bad. Let's see. Edward asks, can you manually play the scattered beats like Jay Dilla? What do you mean? Are you talking about just applying the effect that switches up the rhythm by basically shifting around and scattering everything that it's applying to? Or did you mean like actually doing physical manual inputs for each component of the beat like you would on a drum machine? Because for the latter, I wouldn't be able to do that unless I set up individual tracks to be one-shots that I'm actually hitting buttons on. And even so, I don't think there's a way to record that into a loop. Like, let's say I set a snare, a kick, a snare, and a hat on 3 different one-shots. I could create a beat just by hitting them in sequence like I would on a drum machine, but I don't think there's a way to record that into its own separate loop track. I was messing around with that like a week ago, trying to figure out if you could do that. One thing that Loop Station can do, which I haven't figured out yet, because I've been trying to find a tutorial that explains it, the undo redo feature basically lets you record alternate versions of your loop tracks by adding the input effects or track effects. So like, let's say I have this mode here, which is like a switched up version of the beat. I can use undo redo to basically toggle between the regular version and the scattered version without turning scatter on every time. But I just don't know how to get it to record. I haven't figured it out yet. But as soon as I do, I could basically set up version 1 of the beat and then make version 2 really complicated with a bunch of different effects and make it more than just, a switch in rhythm. And then I can just go undo redo and it should toggle just between the two and basically make it some flipping versions of the song with one button instead of having to, set up all of the inputs and set the settings and levels. I've yet to find a good tutorial from one of the beatbox loopers out there, but I'll figure it out eventually because it's pretty powerful. But we'll go ahead and keep our 2-track here. I don't think we need to make it much more complicated than this. I'm gonna leave it at about 50% here. Let me know if you guys have trouble hearing me. I think all the settings on my mic should be good enough that you guys are hearing me over the background track, but let me know if it's too soft or if the track itself is too loud. All right. Edward says sounds good. All right, thanks. Thanks for being my sound guy, Edward. My unofficial sound guy. Now let's get to work. We're going to go for colors and shading on our male model here. And a little bit of housekeeping from something that we were talking about in the last session when we were doing the line work, the primary sketch and the line work. I figured out what causes that weird anti-aliasing problem on line art. And it's not something I can fix for this one, but I can fix it for the next one we do. So let's see. I'll do this on a separate layer. To recap, the problem we ran into was, let's say we lay down a line like this for a line art layer. And then we try and rotate it or move or scale it. Scaling and rotating is probably the main thing. It's just moving it all over doesn't do much. But if we try and move it, apply the transformation, it anti-aliases and distorts. And the reason for that is because the layer type I'm working on, which you guys can probably see not closely, but here in Clip Studio, I've been using rasterized layers, which are like a rendered setting for whatever it is you're drawing. But if I were to delete this and set it up as a vector layer and do the same thing, it doesn't distort. And that's because it's treating it like a vector and basically using math calculations to translate. It's a little bit hard to see, but I think if we were to do it with actual parts on a drawing, you guys would be able to tell that if I was rotating, let's say an eye, I wanted to change its orientation slightly so that it's not skewed. If I did it on a vector layer, then the distortion and anti-aliasing is, I don't think it's completely gone, but it's much less noticeable. I could see a little bit of kind of smudging around the edges, but I don't think it would be a noticeable difference when you zoom all the way out because of the resolution versus if it was rasterized, then you'd be able to tell. So again, we can't fix it for this one, but the next one we'll do our entire line work on a vector layer. That way if we need to mess with anything, then it shouldn't get distorted. So that's good to know. So let's see, let's take a look at skin tones and start doing color assignment here. I'm working with my mouse and keyboard because it's easier to shift click when I do this versus when I'm using my tablet and stylus. Let's do one for hair. Let's do one for skin, and the rest will be for clothing. All right, if we set, I need to start labeling all my layers. Set our lines as reference layer. We should be able to just area select different parts. Like so. And then I'll use the selection fill option that we've done before. Hair color, let's go for kind of a more pale purple tone, lighter than the outline layer. I'd be curious to see if we're doing the line work on a vector layer, if it makes it easier to do this type of color assignment, because it's less anti-aliasing around the edges. I wonder if we could be able to get cleaner fills if we did vector. We'll test it next time we do one of these. Alright, I should probably create a palette layer. Oh, that's the wrong type of brush. Yeah, that'll be fine. Hair, skin tone. Kind of want to go for a lighter, almost pale skin tone. That might be a little bit too gray. A little lighter. That's not bad. We get a rough idea of how we want to assign colors, and I can always go in and adjust them on the fly later. Just put boundaries on the eyes so when I start filling stuff it won't bleed over and color the inside of the eyes, the whites. Alright, hair's good. We'll use kind of our placeholder color shade here for skin layer. This particular model doesn't have a ton of skin showing, so it should make it pretty easy to assign color. And I can also change the shade on the fly if I want. Okay, that's a little bit better. So we can delete this off of our color guide and just put a thing down here for skin tones. In case I need to get it later. For clothing and armor, I'm I'm thinking a kind of mix of dark, obscuring shades. So let's do clothing over here. I was thinking kind of a dark magenta-ish color for the cape. And then we'll come up with a corresponding color type for anything that's armor-based. So for the shoulder protector thing here, and maybe for the plated armor underneath, we'll come up with a good color to use for all of that to be consistent. So let's see, for the armor, or the cape, maybe we can do color like this. It's got trailing edges, yeah. For the trailing edges, we go darker gray, contrast. For the kind of jeweled parts that are set into armor or the outfit itself, we go a little bit lighter. I think maybe like a pale yellowish kind of jewel color. We can use the same gray color for the things like the gloves as well down here. We do the fingerless gloves thing. For the robe, let's see. I do want a color that's going to contrast with the purple and not blend in, so it just looks like one solid color or one solid garment. So maybe we go darker blue. So if we were to do kind of a rough color assignment draft, like we've done this on the Monster Hunter ones too, it'd be something like this. For the inside of the cape, we'd have to go a shade darker, which I can do on the fly when I need to. Maybe we can do... That's not what I wanted. I think we need a color for the actual armor plating. We did talk about how that the texturing and the way these Under Armour is meant to sort of emulate is like a kind of bone, plated bone. So maybe we can take the blue and make it a bit more of like a bluish gray, kind of in between this dark color and this color for all of the armor plates, and then like things like the guard here and the feet. Let's put that up here. So that would apply to things like this over here, things like this. Maybe we can do the top couple parts this color. And go darker down here. And for the sort of decorative jewels, I'm going to have to mess around with shading to make this look 3D so it doesn't look like it's just flat. The clasp here. Okay, we can go and hide that. We don't need our reference at the moment. when I do the final renders for these character remix projects, I'll probably stick the original reference somewhere on the image so that you can see the before and after. Okay, we can leave our color guide up since I believe, unless I have a layer setting enabled, we can form, select, and fill on each respective layer without worrying about the fact that there's this thing over the top. Well, let's see. We've got hair, skin. So for clothing, I guess we can do the cape first. And do the inside. Oh. Missing a bounding line cutting this section off. How did I miss that? There you go. I'll go a bit darker for the inner lining, like so. Now we can do the sort of robe garment, which is going to be this blue color. Alright, how do we want to do these sort of cufflink things that end on the arms? Let's see, maybe we can just go slightly darker version of this blue so it's not too glaringly different. Now we can do the armor. Now we do the gloves. Make these clasps here on the robe the same color too, so they're consistent. Okay. Use the same darker color for the trailing edges of the cape. Now we need to do the shoes or boots. Oh, I'm on skin there again. There we go. Now we can do the upper parts. Edward says he looks like a medieval Dragon Ball Z so far. Yeah, I could see it. I definitely think that some of the way they do armor in Dragon Ball Z is something that I've never really tried to emulate before. Things like, you know, the Saiyan armor, or like Frieza and Frieza's goons, the way they have that kind of, I don't know what you call that, textured armor look. It was always interesting to me. I think it'll look a little bit better once we get the texturing or the shading. Get some shadows on here. I'll have to go in here and do some color fill cleanup. I'll do that next. I just want to get all the major sections filled in using the selection command before we go in to do cleanup, because I have to move my keyboard. Let's make this a little bit different color for the clasp. One more. Okay, I'm gonna jump into the level edits here and see if I want to tweak anything with the main color palette on the outfit. I think the hair is fine. I don't think I want to do anything to the hair. I think the color hue balance is fine. Could potentially make it darker. Well, I don't want to make it that dark. That'll just be hard to see. Yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, now we got to go in and clean up all the sections from the fill. Color fill, before we can move on to shading. I guess I can add the eyes in so we don't have these soulless blank eyes staring at us the whole time. We'll do the eyes on another layer. They'll be near the top. Eyes for kind of human type characters is something I'm still struggling with a little bit. I haven't quite figured out how I want to do like a unique style of eyes that's going to be interesting, yet not copying the style of a bunch of other artists out there. color. What color eyes? Let's go for like a pale green for now. I can always change it later. Alright, that'll be a good placeholder for now. Now I want to go in and do color cleanup. Shouldn't be too bad. I think the hair might be the most difficult part. If I see any other sections that need to be cleaned up in the line work, then I will also do that as part of the sweep here. Overflow sections, stray lines, all that kind of stuff. Likewise, move on to the skin layer. Like I mentioned before, there's very few uncovered skin parts, and cleanup there should be pretty easy. For the clothing, that's the biggest section of filled colors. I'm just going to sweep through kind of top to bottom, clean up any open or unfilled sections. And I'm not going to do it by color. I'm just going to do it by section and be jumping between colors depending on whatever it is I'm trying to clean up here. I'd be really curious to see if we start working with a vector line layer, if it makes the whole process of color filling and cleanup faster. If nothing else, it'll at least give me the freedom to be able to manipulate parts of my line work without having it get too distorted and smudged. That's the main thing. But if it gives me some better options for doing just color assignment, that would be nice. Of course, the real thing is just to get better at doing consistent line work. What I've done is I've kind of swept from the bottom corner across, and then I'll have to move back up, make sure I didn't miss any sections. The legs, like up here in the middle. Alright, I think we're just about done cleanup. Go ahead and save this. I think the shading portion of the drawing is going to be a little bit more work. There's a lot of detail and stuff to shade. But we can go ahead and move on and do that now. And we'll do the shading the same way we've done it on all the other projects so far. We'll just create a clipping mask above the respective color layer, and then pick our shadow colors and go in and do. I think I will kind of do a quick pass through like we've done on the other ones. Using the mechanical pencil. There we go, that's better. I didn't want the shadow to be the same color as the outline layer. For the hair, we'll keep the edges kind of rough here, and then I'm probably gonna go in and blend it like we've done on other ones so far. Keep the lines and sections kind of consistent, but it doesn't need to be exact. Because when I go in to smooth it out with the blend, you can also correct any errors. Actually, do it for hair. You do the same thing on the skin layer. Create a clipping mask. Take our base shade and go a couple tones darker. I want to be a little bit careful for the shading on the skin, not to create too much of a contrast. Like, I think that's a little too dark. That's fine. I can always mess around with the color settings and like the brightness or hue saturation for the shading on the skin too if it looks too dark. I think I may need to lighten it a little, but we can go ahead and do that after we get everything put in here. It doesn't need to be done right now. Unfortunately, we only have two major sections for skin tone here. Basically, the face, the neck, the hands. That's it. Everything else is covered. And like we've done on previous drawing projects, I'll go in here with the eraser and clean up the actual line edges on all the shading sections. That's why I said this is all just kind of a rough pass when it comes to where I want the shadows to lie. And then I'll go in here and actually clean up. This is just an example. And clean the edges up. Now we can go ahead and move on to the first pass on the shadow layer for clothing and armor. I'm going to work a little bit farther out as far as my workspace here because we have a lot more larger sections. I don't think I need to zoom in quite as much for the clothing. We'll do it this way, sort of move through all of the major sections when we do our rough pass here. Do the same things, make our way down. I'm trying to figure out where I want to put the shadows on the cape here. I'm kind of blocking the sections, be a little bit generous, and then when I go in and do the cleanup, I want to cut the shadows back a little bit, then I'll do it then. Let's see, for the inside of the cape, we just need to go a couple tones darker than this darker shade and get kind of a rough approximation of where we want the shadows to fall. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now we can do the armor. Armor shading is going to be a little bit tricky on this inner part since I need to account for the fact that there's something obscuring the actual armor layer. I need to make sure I don't screw the shadows up too bad. Do the same up here. I think I'm actually going to have to zoom in and be a little bit more careful for the armor. Specifically this part here. Let's see, where are we at with our beat? Maybe we can switch it up here since it's been a little while. Okay, we'll leave it there for now. Make sure we catch the trailing edge and extend the shadows, sort of following the way the cape falls. Doing the shadows here on the armor is a little tricky since it's layered. It's got all these plated layers. I want to make sure I'm not obscuring sort of the order. how those different overlapping plates fit together, as it were. I think that'll work. Since we're on the same color for the armor, I'll go ahead and do the shading down here as well. So we don't have to jump back and forth. Alright, I think that's it for all of the armor plating. Now I guess we'll do the robe garment on the inside, the dark blue here. We'll go shade darker on that. Let's pretty much do the same thing. I know commentary-wise, this part of the project, the shading, I find one of the most interesting. It's just not the most interesting thing to talk about, since I'm doing the same thing kind of over and over again as I work the drawing from top to bottom. So I guess we can kind of break up the shading part as I work through all the various sections and eventually go in and do the cleanup. We can talk a little bit about some content ideas that I've been considering and some things I'm looking at. I will say, for any of the folks that might be stopping by the stream tomorrow, I'm trying to get my days straight. Tomorrow we'll be doing a chill stream. First one in what seems like a few weeks. I think it's been a little bit since we've done a chill stream. But I'll be returning to tier lists. And it's going to be a media ranking tier list session on the chill stream. And probably do some digging tonight. I've got a couple in mind that I'd like to do as far as ranking media that I've consumed over the years. The first one is going to be a movie tier list. I dug around and I found a pretty decent one that's essentially 80s movies, well-known 80s movies. So I'll be doing that for probably the first tier list we do on the stream. I need to see if there's one for 90s movies, maybe 90s and 2000s, if I can find good lists. But I figure that'll be a good way to get back into ranking stuff since we haven't done a tier list in a while. But the reason why I bring it up is because if you guys have other suggestions for media types and things you want me to rank on our chill streams, by all means, like I said before, send them to me on Twitter or here on YouTube. I'm always down to check out other types of lists people have made of stuff that I may have an opinion on. If it's something I don't really have an opinion on, then I'm not gonna cover it in a tier list session. You know, like if someone gave me sports teams, I don't follow sports at all. I really wouldn't have much to say on something like sports teams. But for other stuff, music, gaming, I don't really watch a lot of movies now, but I used to. So if it's older movie stuff, then I'd have a lot of opinions. At some point, I'll do like an anime tier list. But still trying to figure out what I want to do for that. And then I will proceed to speed run my cancellation by having controversial opinions on anime, I'm sure. Alright, where I'm working my way up now is the lower midsection parts of the robe garment here, adding shadows. Then I'll need to go in and do sections like the cuff part over here, gloves, and the rest of the accessories. We're almost done with the shading. Edward says war generals tier list. Napoleon would be A or S. That would be interesting. I don't know a ton about history, but I wonder if someone has done something like that. Problem is, I wouldn't, if I don't know the historical figure or a lot of their accomplishments, it'd be difficult for me to accurately rank them because I wouldn't have much to go off of. And I wouldn't want to do it based on just an opinion, because then it wouldn't be accurate. And that's before you even get to some of the more infamous figures in history when it comes to war. And I don't think I'd want to get into the business of ranking really controversial figures, because that could be taken out of context pretty easily. I guess it'd be difficult to sort of narrow in your criteria for how you would even put people on a list of war generals, since there's across history, you know, going back thousands of years or whatever, there's been a lot of wars. So it's like, would you rank it by time period? Would you rank it by region? How would you compare like Napoleon to George Washington or something like that, when there's such a gap of time in between when the conflicts took place? And even then, you know, how would you rank them based on how effective they were, how many casualties or battles they won? I guess that'd probably be something. Edward says Soldier Boy feature versus tier list. That would be an easy one, since I don't really like Soldier Boy. They would all rank very low. I was actually looking around on the tier list site a while back when I was trying to put stuff together for our streams, and I wanted to do a hip-hop artist tier list. The problem is a lot of them have the artist by picture, or sometimes by logo, but usually by picture. And I don't exactly know a lot of more modern artists just by their picture. Some of the older ones definitely, but not the newer ones. And I haven't really kept up on contemporary mainstream hip hop recently. Most of the stuff that I listen to is a bit more off the radar and not something I'd expect to see in a tier list. Because if I did like an underground hip hop tier list, I'd have to make my own, which I could do. Be a lot of work because I'd have to construct all the art and everything for the tier list myself, but I guess I could do that. I do want to do a hip hop media share at some point. It'll most likely have to be unarchived because I don't want to get copyright struck for showing stuff off. But I'll have to look at putting together some stuff for that and see how much content I can get. Because there's a lot. A lot of stuff from all over the world. Edward says, where do you look for tier list? Ah, good question, Edward. If you go to the tier maker website, let me see if I can grab one and just paste it in the chat. Let's see if it'll let me paste it in chat. Oh yeah, it does work. Tier maker are the people who created the template software and layout for people to make tier lists. And so when you create them on their site, they basically have one big repository of stuff people have made. And then you just fill them out. You can actually save them locally, or you can even just directly tweet them out if you want. So whenever I'm looking for tier lists to cover on our chill streams, I'm looking here on that site, and I'm just running keyword searches for stuff. You know, I'll be like food tier lists, band tier list or something like that. And that's how I go and look and see what people have created. And you can make your own. It's not just ones people have created. They give you the tools to just do it yourself if you really want to. And it's not hard, but you need to actually get the graphics in order to put them into the tier list template to be able to rank them and whatnot. That's the thing. And you have to create all the graphic stuff yourself. It's a pretty comprehensive list. There's a lot of different types of tier list content on there that people have made. And people have sent me some that I've used and shown on stream so far, and some that I'm going to be covering in the future. I know Wazi sent me a few. And every once in a while I'll dig around on there and just see if I can find something that looks interesting that I'd want to talk about and get canceled over. Alright, I think we just need to add highlights on accessory. And we'll take a look at how we've done our rough assignment for shading, and then we'll go in and do cleanup. I will work on the character eyes at the very end. I'm going to have to move things around, do some edits. Right now he looks a little bit cross-eyed, and I want him kind of looking at the camera, not cross-eyed, but we'll leave it there for now. We'll do that very last. Alright, first up we'll do the hair. And this is pretty simple. I'm just running through with the blend tool and softening the edges on the highlights for the hair. right, Edward says, how do I see the images to put into the list? Are you looking at creating your own, or are you looking at filling out one that someone has already made? Because it works differently depending on what you're doing. If it's a pre-made tier list, all the images are at the bottom, and like we've seen us do here on stream, you just drag them into the tiers. But if you're talking about creating your own, let me see. I haven't done one in a bit. Let's see. Make your own template. Okay, yeah, if you're creating your own template, you have to create the image files yourself in order to upload them on the actual template. So, oh, Edward says, I don't see them. Is it only on PC? That's a really good question. I don't know. Let me take a look. So you're saying when you pull up someone's created tier list, it doesn't give you things in order to drag into the respective tiers, right? That's a good question. Oh, I got a phone. Let me try and pull it up on my phone here while we're talking and see. It should be mobile friendly. Given how popular this site is, I'd be very surprised if they didn't have a mobile option. Let me go over to their site. I'll do it in Chrome. All right. Oh, get out of here. Oh, that's a YouTube video. Greatest video games of all time. Let's see. I can see the images. And I have this up on mobile. It's a little bit clunky. I find it easier to fill this thing out on PC personally. But, oh. Try flipping to your phone to landscape, Edward. On portrait, it looks like it hides the images. Unless you go into presentation mode. Yeah. If you're in portrait mode on your phone, go to presentation mode, which is one of the things at the bottom of the tier list, and then it'll put all of the icons into a scrolling roll at the very bottom of your screen, and then you could drag them into their respective tier. Otherwise, if you don't go into presentation mode and you go to landscape, flip your phone sideways, then they should pop up, because I could see them just by flipping my phone. I think it's a little bit easier to see in presentation mode anyway. But yeah, like I can see all the icons. They basically pop up in order, and you just drag them in the respective tier, and you should be good to go. Naked Snake says hi. Hey, what's up, Naked Snake? Welcome to the stream. We are finishing up shading on a character concept here. I was taking a quick pause to show Edward how to use the tier maker site. But yeah, Edward, you should be good. Either enable presentation mode or flip your phone sideways. Okay. So we did the hair. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to go through and clean up the edges on all the shading, starting with the skin layer. Okay, Edward says, yep, should be good to go. That's weird. I guess I never noticed because I only ever do those tier lists on my computer here. But it's good to know for people who are on mobile. If you need to be able to use the site and fill stuff out, it's there. But yeah, for Edward and everybody else that are hanging out, since I'm going to be working on tier list ranking stuff tomorrow on stream. But if you guys see anything on there on the tier list site that you think's interesting and want me to cover and talk about here on stream, then just send them to me on Twitter, or we're here on YouTube, and we'll take a look. Or if you want to make your own and send them to me, that works too. By all means, as long as it's not anything that's going to get me in trouble, then feel free to create your tier list and send them over. Naked Snake says, did you hear about the Fortnite X Naruto crossover? I don't play Fortnite. I don't really follow news on it, so I had not heard that. That is interesting. I'm surprised it took that long. Is Naruto the first anime crossover they've done for Fortnite? I don't think it is it? I know they've had stuff like Ariana Grande and other well-known artists or whatnot. Oh, okay, Naked Snake says it is the first anime crossover. Alright. Well, I guess that makes sense. But I wonder why it's not like Boruto, because that's the most current property for Naruto, right? Is the successor anime Boruto. Edward says no, but I have heard about the MLK crossover, like Martin Luther King crossover. I'm assuming that stands for something else. Honestly, I don't follow Fortnite, so unless something really wacky makes the news, I usually don't hear about it. Oh, Edward says yes. Martin Luther King was in Fortnite. Okay, that's weird. It's kind of a weird tie-in. Naked Snake says the reason they probably went with Naruto is he's the more popular series and well known. That's true. Is it Shippuden or is it the original, like young teenager Naruto and friends, or is it the stuff from Shippuden? My guess is it's probably Shippuden, since that's more recent and people would kind of know the more older characters. But okay, Naked Snake says it is Naruto Shippuden. All right. I remember reading Naruto back in the day, reading the manga when it was being scanslated and posted online. I watched some of the anime and then kind of noped out once I realized how much of an investment it was going to be. Basically, I call that the Bleach treatment. I did the same thing with Bleach back in the day. Started reading and watching it and then realized it was going to take me eons to finish the whole thing. But I have a friend of mine who's kind of a maniac. He watched all of both Naruto and Bleach, and I asked him why he did that, and he said he always finishes what he starts. I said, okay, that's fair. assuming he watched the movies too, that's even more content to go through. Naked Snake says, I tried to get into One Piece and stopped at the 100th episode. Yeah, One Piece is another one that's a bit of an investment. The story and kind of the characters always sounded interesting in One Piece, but when it comes to that time investment, man, it's difficult for me to invest time in content that's going to be that dense, volume-wise. For a long time, I haven't read any manga recently, but for a long time, the only one I was actively reading was Berserk. But then it started coming out so slowly, I basically said, I'm just going to read it like once a year and catch up on any chapters that come out. And then earlier this year, unfortunately, Miura died, so no one knows what's going to happen with Berserk. Naked Snake says, I'm not going to lie, I love the four kids opening for One Piece. Edward says, yeah, I remember that episode where Naruto builds a stairway to heaven and jumps off in 360 headshots Orochimaru with a sniper rifle, then dabs and does the floss. Yeah, I think that was the last movie. It was Naruto in the Kingdom of Chug Jugs. Oh, wrong color. The whole concept of brand tie-ins is always interesting to me. I don't have a problem with it. Like, to me, it makes sense for Fortnite to want to tie in properties that they know people are watching. It just sounds weird when you hear Naruto and Fortnite, you know? Oh, whoops. Wrong layer. That doesn't go there. Naked Snake says, okay, so when I usually read manga or comic books, I like to binge read them. Yeah, I know how that goes. If it's a compelling story and it's interesting, a lot of stuff like that's difficult to put down, right? You want to know what's going to happen? You guys want a real world story of experiencing something like that? Back when I was in Earth School, I used to read a lot more manga and watch anime and stuff was coming out. This would have been in the 2000s. And a good buddy of mine was really hooked into the IRC sources for getting scanslated manga. And if you kids don't know what IRC is, then that's fine. I'll just take my senior discount now. But he got me into Kenshin, right? Rurouni Kenshin, the manga. I never watched the anime, but he had me reading the manga. And the manga's really good. I know the author of Kenshin, the mangaka, is a giant scumbag, evil person. This was back before any of that was known. And I do think Kenshin's still a good piece of art. It just sucks that the creator's a horrible person. But the manga I was reading was really interesting, and the reason why I bring up the story of binge reading stuff and consuming things is I was reading the second major arc in the last couple books, and something crazy happened in one of the last chapters, and I was in the process of having to go to class, and it was killing me because I couldn't take the manga with me because I had to go to class, and I had to wait for all my classes all day long to be done in order to get back home and sit down and read what happened. And if I had just stopped earlier instead of reading the cliffhanger chapter, then I wouldn't have had to suffer through it all day. But like something really crazy happens, like I don't have time to read the rest of it. I can't skip class, so I guess I'll just have to suffer through the rest of my day, and then minute one when I get home, see what happens. But yeah, sometimes it'd be like that. Naked Snake says, I really got into comic books recently because I found a website that is not blocked in my high school, so I've just been reading comic books on the regular. I can't say I've read a ton of comics compared to manga, but if you guys want a recommendation for a comic book series that is my favorite comic slash graphic novel series that I got into in Earth School, again, same friend actually. He had all the volumes and he let me borrow them and I read them probably in like a day or two. It was a lot. It's like 13 books, but I just read it all. And that series is called Transmetropolitan. It's my favorite comic series and one I usually reread every year, every once in a while. It's about a far off future on Earth. Basically, I think it's like 1500 years in the future or something like that. Pretty far off from where we are now. But it features a character named Spider Jerusalem, and he's a journalist. And it's all about the ideas of far off futuristic society and the idea of journalism and truth. And it's got some very interesting commentary on kind of society and politics, because a whole big major arc has to do with politics and whatnot. And I would say, even if you're not really a politics person, because that's not the focal point of the series, you should check it out, because the main character is just a riot. He's not a good person. He's a giant bastard, but he is the hero of the story, and Transmetropolitan is just an experience to read through. So I'll say, if you could find a way to get your hands on it or read it online or whatnot, check it out, because it's a trip. It's a bit prophetic in kind of predicting certain things that would happen in America. It was written in the 90s, I think, a long time ago. But if you live in the States, some of the things that they talk about in this book that takes place, like 1,000 years in the future or whatever, it seems to kind of parallel things that we've seen in the States recently, which is very interesting. Edward says, isn't manga just Chinese comics? Close. I don't know if there's a word for the Chinese equivalent of manga. Oh, I'm sure there is. I just don't know what it is off the top of my head. Because Korean version of manga or comics is manhwa, right? But anyway, yeah, my recommendation for a comic series that I really like is Transmetropolitan, or Transmet. Very interesting. Supposedly they're going to try and make a live action movie about, but I'm a little bit skeptical as to how effective they would be able to do that. Naked Snake says, a comic series that surprisingly is good, stories that are pretty great, but I really do love the art style of the Sonic IDW comics. Yeah, I've heard a lot of the IDW adaptations of properties is pretty solid. And I'm going to assume, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Naked Snake, but is that a different ownership than the Archie comics for Sonic? Because I think there's an Archie's comic version, isn't there? I don't know a lot about Sonic. But I know there's a couple different property ownerships for all of the stuff that they make that's not video games. If we're talking about comic series and whatnot, again, I don't read a lot of comics or manga nowadays. I'm usually too busy. But I think I talked about it on one of our streams. Another series I really liked was the Scott Pilgrim series. I was introduced to that one. Actually, it was the same friend of mine, in fact. I was introduced to the comics after I saw the movie for Scott Pilgrim, and I really liked it. Ended up buying all of the volumes at a con. And to this day, I'll still reread it every once in a while. Edward says apparently Chinese comics are manhua. It's spelled kind of similar to the Korean ones then? I don't know. I'd have to take your word for it, Edward, because I haven't looked that up. Naked Snake says, okay, so the Archie comics were the originals that came out, but recently they wanted to start new, so they changed to IDW, basically starting over. So basically they changed property ownerships and they rebooted the universe for Sonic. What you're saying, Naked Snake. That's interesting. Isn't IDW also running the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic comics? I thought I read that they were the ones doing them. I heard those are really popular too. Again, I haven't really read any comics in forever. It's hard enough keeping up on shows and whatnot, much less comics and manga. Wazzy says, what account am I on today? Oh, good, the right one. Hey, Wazzy. Welcome to the stream. We're talking about comics and manga as I work on the shading for our character study here. Naked Snake says, yes, I also enjoy the My Little Pony crossover comics with Transformers. I forget the artists that work on the IDW My Little Pony stuff, but their artists are really good. I can't remember what they've done or what else they've worked on, but I remember hearing a lot of people talk about them as kind of like, I don't know if they're non-canon or what, since I haven't really read any of them. But quality-wise, I heard they were really good. People that liked the My Little Pony show really like the comics too, which is kind of cool that they have other sources of media that are out there. Walsey says, Avatar comics are gold. Are you talking about Last Airbender Avatar? I have several of the graphic novel compilations that basically bundled all of the comics that they did for several of the stories into complete volumes. One of them is like a hardback one, and then a bunch of the regular books. But yeah, those comics are great. They're drawn by a really talented studio. I forget their name off the top of my head. But yeah, Avatar comics are great, and it follows the story of stuff that happened after the Last Airbender show canonically ended. Naked Snake says, God, I really need to rewatch Avatar The Last Airbender. Yeah. I usually go and watch select episodes every year or so. Holds up really well. I really enjoyed Avatar, and I really liked Korra too. I know Korra's a bit more divisive, but I really liked both properties. As far as animation goes and good storytelling and characters. Edward says, no, that's the wrong one. Go back to Spooky Sushi trademark. Go and subscribe, guys. That's right. Is your stream plug to go subscribe to Team Toxicure and Spooky Sushi. And go watch Wazzy's 200K special video that she did. I think they came out today. It's a pretty big milestone. 200,000 subscribers is nuts. I can't even imagine having that many people follow my work. Wazzy says, lol, Edward. I'm telling you, Wazzy, you really need to consider putting out some merch for Spooky Sushi. Like, the one intro shot of Squonk from your recent Spooky Sushi video would make a really good t-shirt. I would totally buy one of those. And Squonk's not a trademark property, I don't think. Don't quote me on that. But if it's not, you should totally consider making some merch with That or the Fresno Nightcrawlers. I'm sure people would buy that. Naked Snake says, I really need to learn a skill. Well, it's never too late, man. Just find something that you're passionate about and or care about learning and do it. Wazzy says, my merch team won't until I'm monetized there. One day I'll look into it. Snake and Sig. Wazzy merch team are mad because they don't. And then Wazzy says, where's that Raku merch? I don't think I'm big enough to really justify launching a merch line. I guess the real question would be, theoretically, if I were to come up with a merch line, what kind of stuff would you guys want to see? Because for my type of content, unless it's something with like my VTuber model or avatar or something like that, I don't really know what specifically I'd put on merch right now. Naked Snake says, I would like to see one body pillow. I'm assuming he was talking to Wazzy, not me. Wazzy says headphones. Oh, Edward says I need that Raku Daki Makura, bro. I could do that. Although, I would probably want to commission someone to do some more appropriate art for something like that, rather than just use my live 2D model, because it doesn't have like an expression or anything. It's just a flat character reference, and that would be funny, but it wouldn't really make a good pillow. Well, it says Beats by Raku. Naked Snake says, I want to see one Raku body pillow. Wazzy says Pink drew mine. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I need to look at some commission possibilities. Just so you guys know, I haven't talked about it on anywhere up till now, but I'm currently working on a really large series of commissions for content stuff here on the channel. I don't know when it's all going to be done because it's a huge project. Probably within the next month or so. But it's not going to be for merch or anything like that. It's going to be for things like stream announcements and thumbnail cards for all of the major stream types we do here on YouTube. So whenever I go live, I'll have an image for that type of stream, and then that'll be the YouTube card for the stream archives. And then I'm commissioning a logo. The logo that I use is just a real simple graphic one you see in the upper right corner of my overlay. It's going to be an actual professionally designed logo, and I can use it for other things as well. Edward says, don't you have a blushing emote or something? Oh, he might be talking to Wazzy. Wazzy's got a bunch of emotes. Wazzy says a slip mat for a record player. Yeah, I guess it would largely depend on how the merch designers and distributors work, and then what kind of art I would use. I don't think I'd use anything I've drawn for merch immediately. So I'd have to look at commissioning someone else to do something that we could put onto a product. But I don't know. Once this latest commission project is done, I'm going to see what kind of things it gives me to work with. And then maybe I'll experiment with some ideas. Naked Snake says. Oh, Edward says, don't you have a blushing emote or something? He said, no, I mean you, bruh. To me? A blushing emote? Oh, you're talking about for my model. For some reason, I thought you were talking about a chat emote. Sorry. Yeah. So for my model, I'm gonna reach across my keyboard. I don't remember which one it is. My blushing emote is it 2? Nope. Nope, that's that one. Nope. That's 3. 4 is my headphones. That's the hard eyes. Is it 1? Huh. Headphones. I don't think I have a blushing emote on my 2.0 model. It might have been part of the live 2D rigging for the 1.0 version, but I don't think Chibox kept it, which is not a big deal. It's not one I use a lot. Let me see. Yeah, the closest thing to a blush emote is probably number 2. I don't even know what you call that, but that's what it looks like. And they had the hard eyes. That's number 5. Chibox did animate that one. It used to be just static hearts, and now it's got an actual kind of pulsating thing, which is... I didn't ask him to do that. He just did it. Naked Snake says, Oraku Boob mouse pad. And then Wazzy says, yeah, it's Oraku stream, your models, emotes. I thought, yeah. That's what I cycled through there. So you guys can probably see it. I have the hard eyes just on permanently right now. I think the reason why I don't use my emotes that often is because usually when I'm doing stuff on stream, my keyboard is not nearby, and I don't have a stream deck. Otherwise, I would map the emotes to that, and I can just click buttons. So I have to do it via keyboard. Naked Snake says, you know, I actually have to go through a lot to get Kamen Rider subs just like old manga. Yeah, I bet. I would assume you'd have to go through like translation or subgroups, maybe unofficial releases, kind of like you used to have to do for anime back in the 2000s. All right, let's go work on these eyes. Like, I'm gonna assume you don't have global releases on things like Netflix or other platforms for Kamen Rider. Though I wonder if Japanese Netflix has releases for something like that. If they did, you can use something like a VPN in order to access the releases from another country. I think I'm gonna move this inner part over a little bit, just a hair to the right. Wazzy says, just hug pillows and boob mouse pads. If I was gonna make a mouse pad, it'd probably be like a booty mouse pad, honestly, because I think those are funny. And I'm not sure how high the demand for something like that would be, but it would be funny. I am curious about how the whole merch through like a distributor and site works. I may have to talk to Wazzy about that offline since she's done it for Toxicure. Be curious to see what the process is for getting an account, getting set up, and what they require in order to even consider working with you. Imagine you have to have some sort of guarantee of business volume before they'll agree to take you on as a client. Naked Snake says things might change for the Kamen Rider series because the series is actually getting an anime. That may affect what they release stuff on, yeah. Especially if they think there's going to be global appeal. And Naked Snake says, once I get out of high school and get a job, I'll buy your entire stock of butt and mouse pads. And Wazzy says, hit me up. Yeah, I'll ping you offline, Wazzy. I'd be really interested to see what that process looks like, just from the business side. Again, merch isn't on my immediate priority list. Right now, it's mostly getting... Well, let's see. I'm going to go over here. Getting some upgrades for content. But yeah, it is something I'm thinking about. I still need to figure out a way to get some emotes for chat, since I've never looked into that for YouTube. Alright, now let's see. How do we want to do the eyes? Naked Snake says, actually, YouTube's getting, I believe, an update for their streamers. What kind of update? Is it something for chat options? Or something like streamer tools? One thing that I do think I like about Twitch more than YouTube just right now is the more interactive things that are built in. In fact, this would be a good question for Wazzy. For Twitch, do you have to be a qualified affiliate before you can get things like the channel point system? I would have assumed so, but I've never asked anybody. So what does it take in order for you to get that enabled on your channel? Okay. Alright. I'll hit you up on that later, Wazzy. I wish YouTube would institute something like that for engagement on here, just because it's a neat feature. But if it's tied to their monetization, it's not really something I'd be able to do right now anyway. Let's see, where do we want to do the highlights? I'm going to go corner to corner. Now we'll keep it down there. Wazzy says, but Raku emotes? Yeah, I thought about a couple different options for chat emotes here. I could do them myself, but I don't think they'll be as good. I think I'd rather hire someone to do some better ones. That's the plan right now. That will most likely be my priority after this current commission bundle of things is done. I don't want to have too many things going at once. I've got the big commission thing I just mentioned. I've got someone working on an outro card for me. Actually, that's... I guess I can talk about it a little bit, but that's the one I'm working on with Pink. I think it's almost done. Well, once that's done, we'll have an outro for streams. Yeah. I'm open to suggestions if you guys know any artists that would be interested in doing commission work for stream emotes. I've been kind of sifting through VTuber Twitter, looking at people that offer to do commissions for that. If you guys know of any people who are good to work with, then let me know. Naked Snake says, I wasn't always Naked Snake, but I think I found my permanent username because everybody, when they hear it, thinks of a normal snake that is naked. When I see your name, and I've seen you in Wazzy's chats too, I just assume you're Solid Snake naked, and it could be because of your profile picture. But I thought of, well-known Metal Gear Solid character Solid Snake running around naked, not a physical, literal animal snake. But that's just where my brain goes. Alright, I'm gonna work on cleaning up some of the shading on the eyes and the irises here. I might add some texture lines if I can get that to work. We'll see. Naked Snake says, actually, you're right. I am Naked Snake from Metal Gear Solid 3. That does feed directly into the meme of being dummy thick and the clap of your butt cheeks being loud enough to alert the guards. I imagine that'd be even more so a problem if you're naked. All right, let's see. I need to create a separate folder just for all the stuff I'm doing with eyes. Naked Snake says, got to go. Might be back later. All right, man. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out. Let's see. We're 2 hours or so. I'll probably be working on stuff for a little while longer. I want to wrap up this drawing and get started on the primary sketch for the next one. So, yeah. Maybe I'll catch you later. But thanks for stopping by and chilling with us. Oh, Wazzy says, I saw progress of Pink's. I know they hate doing the background part of it. I probably should have asked Pink about their thoughts on backgrounds. Because I know they do a lot of primarily character-based drawings. But I don't know what work in progress one you saw, but the one I saw a couple days ago had like full background and shading, and Pink was just working on adjusting some lighting stuff. That's why I said I think it's almost done. But the lighting and background stuff is simple, but I think they did a good job. I have no complaints, but yeah, I probably should have inquired a little bit more about things like the background. That's fine. Again, I think the card itself is turning out really well. But once that's done, then I'll have to edit that into an actual outro video for the stream. So that'll hopefully be something we get done before the end of the year. Alright, I think we're about done. All right, let's save this and do sort of a final check on where we started and where we ended up with this particular project, and then we can probably move on. Wazzy says, but thick is good. How can anyone hate on thick? What are you talking about? In regards to the what? Who's talking about thick? I'm gonna have to organize this whole thing. My folder directory is a mess. But let's see. Let me pull up the original. I can't remember if Wazzy was here for the start of this. She might not have seen the original scan. But here, let me do this. I'm gonna move my tablet back so I can get my keyboard over here. Now I can dump all the stuff into a folder. Call this 1. There we go. Now it's all in one directory. So like I mentioned before, the whole reason why I wanted to work on this was to take a look at some old drawings from probably, like we talked about, maybe a decade ago or more. The sketch here that you're seeing on the left, which is scanned from my notebook of dozens of hundreds of character sketches over the years. The point was to take design from there and sort of redraw and update the design and switch some things out. Like I talked about when we were working on the primary, the biggest problem that I think these older ones have is their proportions are a little bit weird. Like the legs, we talked about legs are too long for a lot of these. You'll see it on the other one that we're going to work on at some point. But the main issue can be sort of fixed by just, well, why can't it? I want free transform, I guess. Oh, there we go, that works. If we just sort of squash the proportions a little bit, it would be a little bit better. But I also wanted to go in there and sort of tweak things like the outfit. Didn't really do much with the characters' facial features and hair. I switched things around a little bit, but mostly is the outfit and the proportions. I wanted to sort of redo things and switch it up a little bit. But because I want to get better at drawing people in this particular style, I need a lot of practice. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at it in any capacity. But taking these old drawings and sort of updating them has been a pretty good exercise and practice. So that's the main point of doing this here. All this is very clamp-like. I don't think the faces and the eyes are very clamp-like, but for the outfits and sort of the general character construction, I could see it. I haven't consumed a lot of clamp, but or if you're talking about the original with like the really kind of long proportions, didn't they really have long legs, limbs in clamp designs? Let's see. Let's stuff like, was it like X? X was Clamp, wasn't it? Card Captor Sakura was Clamp. I remember the characters' faces being very kind of compact, like really big eyes, small faces, big heads. Oh, I need to stick the primaries in there too. But I guess what we can do, sort of continue the exercise and at least get started today. Maybe I can do kind of a preview. Let's hide this and this one. I could show you guys the second scan that I did, which I think has a lot more issues, which is why I chose it. And there's a lot more to redesign as far as the character and everything goes. But let me get my keyboard out of the way. The female model, which... oh, don't need that anymore. The female character looks like this. And this one came from the same time period as the male one. You can tell because the proportion problems are pretty much the same. But this character is more of an armored, not necessarily knight, but we're going for more of an armored warrior type look. This first one is kind of more of a regal outfit. Again, armored, but you have things like the cape and the accessories. The second character is different. This would be more like a fighter type, I think. But this one had some noticeable problems, like the legs are too long, the face is alright. This character does have a horn, so it's right here. But the limbs are really thin. Like, disturbingly thin. And the armor is a little generic. So for this one, I think the idea of redesigning the character and the outfit and armor would be pretty interesting and in line with what we did on the previous one. So maybe what we can do to sort of get started, I didn't do this on the last one, but it's kind of an interesting idea, would be to do a rough sketch of, like, maybe from like the shoulders up, and then do kind of like a kind of close-up character sketch of the details and see how we would start adapting things, and then go into like a full pose and redrawing the whole thing. And this one's probably going to be very different looking than the original, which is kind of the point of this exercise. So let's see, let me... the color's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch out kind of a, again, shoulders up from about here. Put that on a new layer. And see if we can get kind of an idea for how we want to change things with the character. And then we should have time to at least get the pose primary and everything done. I don't know if we'll be able to start getting into the actual outfit and specifics, but we'll see. I'm not necessarily on a strict schedule today. But we can see. I'm going to work off to the side here and just start sketching. This is going to give me a bit of practice in drawing perspectives from different sides too. The last one was facing the right. This one will be facing the left. The last one's facing the left. This one will be facing the right. I know directions. I may do a multiple step primary here. One just to get the physical layout here, and then actually start doing the details like eyes, hair, and all that stuff on another layer. This is more just to get kind of a guiding place to start. Alright, I think that's kind of roughly the head shape, kind of the position I'm looking at for this part of the drawing. So what I'll do is I'll drop the transparency, create a new layer, and actually start sketching in the specifics now that I kind of know roughly where I'm going to be. Move this in so I can see it. Move this in so I can see it. Let me get rid of this. Alright, now I'll use this layer to start sketching in the specifics. I wonder if I want to rotate this part of the face a little. I don't want the head to be tilting down necessarily. Let's see if we can fix that slightly. There we go. Yeah, I'll just redo it. Again, this is just a rough sketch layer on top of the original primary, but now I'm going to put the details in. Penguin's back. Penguin says, "Hi, Arako. I'm now at work and on my break and came to say hi." Hey, man. How's the Veterans Day retail environment going? Is it as busy as you thought? Okay, we've got more noticeable eyelashes on this particular model. Penguin says, "It's been busy, now busy as hell, but not slow." I see. Well, good luck getting through the rush. I was watching on the news not too long ago. They were talking about, due to the supply chain issues this year, that retailers are looking at a shortage of turkeys for Thanksgiving. Potential shortage of turkeys, which is pretty bananas when you think about it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Penguin, but you said you work in a grocery store? If so, then you're probably going to see a lot of that. Apparently people are rushing out to buy turkeys now, you know, a couple weeks out from Thanksgiving here in the States, just because they may not have any the week before or whatnot. Which, again, it's bananas that you could have a thing like a shortage of turkeys for a well-known holiday. Penguin says, "Only 2 more hours to go before my day off tomorrow. And yes, I work in a grocery store and people are rushing to buy turkeys." Yeah, it's crazy. And it's only going to get worse between now and the end of the month when Thanksgiving shows up. Wazzy says, "Is it American Turkey Day already? When is that?" 25th, I believe. I think it's actually tied to Thursday, not an actual day. Let me see. Yeah, I think it's 2 weeks from today, in fact. Yeah, I think it always falls on the 25th, right, Penguin? So yeah, we're quite literally 2 weeks exactly from the holiday, and they're looking at a turkey shortage. I almost said turtle shortage. That is not what people eat on Thanksgiving. Turkey. Naked Snake says, "I'm back from taking a shower." Hey man, welcome back. Wazzy says, "Oof, stay strong, Penguin." Yeah, man, retail is just an utter nightmare around the holidays this time of year. Just trying to let it stress you out too much, and hopefully you avoid any of those difficult customers like you talked about previously. People that work in retail work a thankless job, man. I've been there. I've worked at a grocery store before, like we've talked about before, and it's thankless, but it does teach you a lot about what it's like for people that spend their entire life in that career field, and hopefully you can kind of identify and empathize with them and not treat them like Karen would. I think I'm gonna put hair accessory on this character. Naked Snake says, "Oh, is that Oni? Are you talking about the fact that the character has a horn?" His character's not an Oni, no. You want to be a little more technical. She's a descendant of dragons, hence the horns. Wazzy says, "Everyone should work one winter in retail, keep them humble." I absolutely agree, Wazzy. I think everyone at some point should do time in a retail environment, if not just period, during like the crazy holiday season. Whether you're here in the States or you're in another country, I think it's pretty much universal that it teaches you a lot about empathy when you gotta work in that crazy environment and deal with unreasonable people. Same goes for the food and restaurant industry. If you're working in retail in a store or in a kitchen or in a restaurant, it'll teach you things about people. Naked Snake says, "We should make prisoners work in retail on the holidays." I don't know if that would work, Naked Snake. Especially if you're not careful about the stability of the prisoners you have working. They got nothing to lose, and they're probably not going to respond well to the high pressure and stress of the retail environment. Penguin says, "Also already worked." There he goes. "I'm about to, Wazzy, so I got that covered. Also already worked 4th of July weekend." And Wazzy says, "What's worse, food service or retail?" You're asking me personally? It depends. Because you can have, well, technically food service is retail. Like if you work in a restaurant, it depends what you're doing, obviously, but like for me, I worked on the front of the lines in the retail customer service part, and then I also worked in the kitchen part. So I did both, sometimes at the same time on the same day. But I don't know. I think it just depends on where you're working. Let me fix that. It's like physically, I think a kitchen is probably more taxing, again, physically, compared to working at like a store. But at the same time, you just never know. You could be like stock in a store and have just as much physical interaction and taxing stress. Penguin says, "Food service, from what I've seen personally, places by me are managed horribly." Yeah, I would say if you had to think about like a retail store versus a restaurant would be harder physically. Whoop. Okay, let's keep working with our character design here. Naked Snake says, "If you could have one superpower, what would it be?" For me, it would be probably to slow down time. So you're talking about like a Dio ability. For me personally, if I had to choose a superpower, it'd be telekinesis. When I think about a power that would be useful in a pinch and also just useful in general, being able to manipulate things mentally without exerting physical effort would be my choice. Alright, let's see what we can do with the hair here. I think I'm going to keep the sort of tied up hair with the ponytail, but I'm going to change some stuff with the actual ponytail. The one here is a little bit basic, not that interesting. I like the idea of a hairpin, or like a kind of more jeweled thing keeping the hair tied up. Penguin says, gotta go now. Had fun watching and talking to everyone. All right, Penguin. Good luck. Take no prisoners. And try and maintain professionalism at all times. Naked Snake says, okay, Penguin, don't get caught by the Batman. That's right. Alright, for the sketch that we're doing here, let's see. I want to change some things with this armor. The armor set that we ultimately get for this character is going to look pretty different, I think. Still going to be kind of like a plated full body armor set, but there's some things I really want to change with this. But it doesn't have to necessarily be fully fleshed out in this portrait sketch I'm doing here. What we can do is kind of put some rough ideas together, and then when I actually do the full drawing later, then I'll incorporate those ideas into the updated piece. I think we need to go a little bit further out for the shoulders. Something like that. And just cut it off there. The kind of contouring and texturing on this kind of plate mail-ish armors, that's what I want to really change. We'll just kind of cut it off right here, and then we'll work in some more details. I think once we have a pose in place, we can work with that a little bit more. Naked Snake says, a really medieval weapon that I've gotten into recently is a kunai on a chain. That's a ninja weapon. Kind of like a kusarigama, but instead of a sickle, it has a kunai on it, right? Naked Snake says, "Oh Jesus, I gotta go. It's a school night. It's 7 o'clock. I wake up at 4:20. Man, that's an early morning, dude." All right, thanks for tuning in, Naked Snake. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Hope you have a good night and good luck at school. All right, before we start wrapping up here, so I'll put in placeholder for the eyes. It won't really matter for just this sketch, but we'll kind of put them in here so the character's not, again, blankly staring at us from the abyss. Now if we take this and kind of move it over so we have some distance, there's some things we can kind of experiment with later on the actual drawing itself. I think the eyes are a little close together. The nose might be a little too low as well. The sketch here is really kind of a rough approximation. Move the mouth up too. When we actually go in to draw the character from top to bottom, it'll be a good chance to fix some details or tweak things, but this is a good start. And then we can see once we start getting into the specific drawing of things like the armor and all the other elements, what else we want to swap in and kind of tweak. Yeah, I think that'll do it for just kind of an initial preview of what we're going to be working on with this character. Again, the main focus of the next time we look at this project will be getting the full body pose together and then redesigning the rest of the outfit, because I want to do kind of an overhaul on this design from this old sketch. It'll still be kind of an armored character, but there's some things I want to tweak with the design, specifically how the armor looks. And maybe we can sketch out some ideas for variations and whatnot. Let's see, how are we doing on time? 2.5, almost 3 hours. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and call it here for today's drawing stream. I could go into the pose drawing, and that'll probably add on another hour. And I think we can move all that into the next stream and then do kind of maybe start to finish from sketch to inking and coloring. Might be able to do the whole thing in one stream next time instead of splitting it up. But to recap, We can go ahead and hide this. Our main to-do was finishing off our dude here. The sketch is in here. Where is it? Down here. And I think this was a good experiment in doing some redesign work. I may touch up some other things and finalize some little details here or there, but the overall render and coloring, I think, is done on the first one. Yeah, we will pick up with this next time. I don't know if I'm going to do another type of content for drawing streams between now and the next one. We may jump straight into this project again. I don't know. I'll have to think about that and see what makes the most sense. But for now, once again, thanks to all the folks who stopped by and hung out on the stream today. We definitely got some interesting discussions going, so thanks for hanging out. We will get back together tomorrow for a chill stream, and we'll be jumping back into tier lists. So in between now and then, again, if you guys have any ideas for things you want me to cover on the tier lists, feel free to send them to me, and then we can take a look. Wazzy says thanks for streaming. Thanks for tuning in, Wazzy. Again, always a pleasure to have you here talking with the chat. I'll ping you on Discord later to talk about some of the stuff we discussed. But yeah, thanks again, folks. I will catch you guys in the next stream. Have a good evening.